Your thoughts are reaching places you've never been. Every day, without your awareness, the focused energy of your mind touches outcomes you'll never trace back to yourself. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the most cutting-edge physics on Earth is quietly confirming what mystics have said for thousands of years. In 1964, a physicist named John Bell proposed a theorem that shook the foundations of how we understand reality. He showed, mathematically, that two particles, once connected, can influence each other instantly, regardless of the distance between them. Separate them by a meter or a galaxy, the connection holds. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance because it violated everything he believed about locality and causation. He spent years trying to disprove it. He couldn't. And since then, experiment after experiment, from Alain Aspect's lab in Paris in 1982 to the Nobel Prize-winning work in 2022, has confirmed the same result. Particles that once shared a state remain correlated. Change one, the other responds instantly. Now, mainstream science will tell you this has nothing to do with consciousness. Fair enough. The experiments measure photon polarization, electron spin, subatomic behavior at scales far removed from your morning commute. That's a reasonable objection, and it deserves respect. But here's where it gets harder to dismiss: the measurement problem. In quantum mechanics, a particle exists in a superposition of all possible states until it's observed. The act of observation collapses the wave function into a single outcome. Something about the presence of a conscious observer changes what happens at the most fundamental level of matter. Physicists have debated this for a century. They still are. What if observation and intention share the same root? Consider what Neville Goddard taught in the 1940s and 50s. He described a practice he called living in the end, occupying the feeling of your desired reality so completely that your internal state becomes indistinguishable from the experience of having it. He described this with the certainty of someone reporting experimental results. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, he said, and observe how your assumption hardens into fact. He never framed this as wishful thinking. He treated it as mechanics. You select the state, you dwell in it. Reality conforms. For decades, that sounded like poetry. Beautiful, maybe. Useful, perhaps. But unscientific. Then quantum mechanics revealed that selecting a state, observing, measuring, choosing, is precisely what collapses potential into actuality. The language is different, the mechanism maps, but knowing the theory changes nothing by itself. The gap between understanding and living this is where almost everyone stalls. Think about the last time you genuinely worried about something. Your stomach tightened. Your breathing shortened. Your mind looped through worst-case scenarios with cinematic detail. You felt the dread in your body as if the feared outcome had already arrived. That's the power of assumption working against you. You collapsed a wave of possibility into the version you feared most. And your physiology, your decisions, your conversations all reorganized around it. You've done this hundreds of times. You just called it anxiety. Now reverse the direction. The same capacity that can lock you into fear can lock you into a chosen outcome. Goddard's method asked you to do with intention what you already do with worry. Inhabit a state so fully that your body believes it, your emotions confirm it, and your actions flow from it without effort. The discipline is in choosing which state you collapse into. Worry is effortless because it's habitual. Intentional assumption requires you to override years of mental conditioning. That's the real work. The Hermetic tradition understood this long before particle physics existed. As above, so below. As within, so without. The Kybalion, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, describes a universe where mind is the fundamental substance, where matter is condensed thought, and the patterns within consciousness necessarily express themselves in external reality. This wasn't metaphor to the Hermetists. They meant it literally. Every internal state corresponds to an external condition, and shifting the internal pattern shifts what manifests. Quantum entanglement offers a startling parallel. Two particles don't need a signal between them. They don't need time, they don't need proximity. Their connection operates outside the framework of cause and effect as we understand it. Your intention, if the mystics are right, works the same way the outcome you're reaching for doesn't need a logical chain of events to arrive. It needs a state, your state, that matches it. This is where most people hesitate. The rational mind wants a roadmap. Step 1 leads to step 2, leads to step 3, leads to the result. But entanglement doesn't work through steps. Correlation is instantaneous and non-local. Goddard described the same principle when he said the bridge of incidents, the sequence of events connecting your current reality to your desired one, is none of your business. Your only job is to maintain the state. The how arranges itself. That sounds like a convenient excuse to skip hard work. Let's address that directly. Sustained assumption is hard work, possibly the hardest work you'll ever do. Sitting in a feeling of fulfillment while your bank account, your relationship, your circumstances all scream the opposite, that requires a kind of inner discipline most people abandon within 48 hours. Your mind will argue. Your senses will contradict. Every piece of evidence around you will insist that you're deluding yourself. Goddard never pretended otherwise. He called this the death of the old man, the deliberate release of your former identity. Dying while you're still alive. Comfortable, it is not. Rumi wrote about this 800 years ago. You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. He wasn't being romantic. He was describing the process of surrendering the identity that clings to limitation. Every time your assumption wobbles, every time doubt floods back in, that's the heartbreaking. The opening comes when you stop defending the old story and let the new one take hold. The pain isn't a sign you're failing. The pain is the old structure giving way. So what does the practice actually look like? You find a quiet space, you close your eyes, you construct a scene, a single specific scene that implies your desire has already been fulfilled. A conversation with a friend where they congratulate you. The weight of a key in your hand. The particular silence of a room you haven't lived in yet. You loop that scene until it feels as natural and familiar as a memory. You engage your senses. The temperature of the air, the texture of what you're touching, the tone of a voice. And then you fall asleep in that state. Or you simply carry it with you, returning to it every time the old narrative tries to reclaim your attention. The mental diet is the sustaining practice. Every thought you entertain is a vote. Thoughts of lack, vote for lack. Thoughts of fulfillment, vote for fulfillment. You catch the negative assumption mid-sentence in your own mind, and you revise it. You do this 50 times a day. 100. You do it until the new pattern runs on its own. Until the assumption of fulfillment is the one that feels natural, and the old story feels foreign. Here is where entanglement becomes more than analogy. Bell's theorem proved that local realism is false. The universe does not operate only through direct, observable chains of causation. Something connects outcomes across distances that logic cannot bridge. If the universe permits non-local correlation at the particle level, the question isn't whether consciousness could participate in this kind of connection. The question is why we assume it doesn't. Dean Radin, chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, has conducted experiments suggesting that focused human intention can influence the output of random event generators, devices designed to produce perfectly random sequences. The effect sizes are small. Critics have pushed back on methodology. The debate is ongoing and unresolved, but the data exists, published in peer-reviewed journals, replicated across multiple labs. The conversation is no longer about whether there's anything to measure. It's about what the measurements mean. You've already felt this. Even if you've never framed it this way, you've thought of someone moments before they called. You've walked into a room and known something was wrong before anyone spoke. You've made a decision that contradicted every rational argument and watched it turn out to be exactly right. Your mind reaches further than your body. You've always known that. You just lacked a framework that took the experience seriously. The framework exists now. Quantum mechanics didn't create the connection between your inner state and your outer reality. It gave us language precise enough to stop dismissing it. Entanglement didn't prove that consciousness shapes matter. It proved that the universe is far stranger, far more interconnected, far less local than the mechanical worldview ever allowed, and in that strangeness there is room, vast room, for everything the mystics described. Your focused intention is a choice of state. Every moment you sustain it, you're selecting which possibility becomes actual. The distance between where you are and where you want to be isn't measured in miles or months. It's measured in the consistency of your inner conviction. Particles separated by galaxies respond to each other without delay. The outcome you're holding in your mind doesn't need your permission to begin assembling itself. The only real question is whether you'll maintain the state long enough to find out. Tonight, when the house is quiet and your defenses are down, build the scene. One scene. Feel it until your hands almost remember touching what isn't there yet. And when doubt arrives, because it will, probably within minutes, recognize it for what it is, the last flicker of an old wave function, collapsing to make room for the one you chose.